Srivijaya was a Buddhist thalassocratic empire based on the island of Sumatra, which influenced much of Southeast Asia. Srivijaya was an important center for the expansion of Buddhism from the 7th to the 12th century AD. Srivijaya was the first unified kingdom to dominate much of the Malay Archipelago. The rise of the Srivijayan Empire was parallel to the end of the Malay seafaring period. Due to its location, this once powerful state developed complex technology utilizing maritime resources. In addition, its economy became progressively reliant on the booming trade in the region, thus transforming it into a prestige goods-based economy. The earliest reference to it dates from the 7th century. A Tang dynasty Chinese monk, Yijing, wrote that he visited Srivijaya in year 671 for 6 months. The earliest known inscription in which the name Srivijaya appears also dates from the 7th century in the Kedukan Bukit inscription found near Palembang, Sumatra, dated 16 June 682. Between the late 7th and early 11th century, Srivijaya rose to become a hegemon in Southeast Asia. It was involved in close interactions, often rivalries, with the neighbouring Java, Khmer, and Champa. Srivijaya's main foreign interest was nurturing lucrative trade agreements with China which lasted from the Tang to the Song dynasty. Srivijaya had religious, cultural and trade links with the Buddhist Pala of Bengal, as well as with the Islamic Caliphate in the Middle East. The kingdom ceased to exist in the 13th century due to various factors, including the expansion of the competitor Javanese Singasari and Majapahit empires. After Srivijaya fell, it was largely forgotten. It was not until 1918 that French historian Georges Coeds, of École Française d'Extrême Orient, formally postulated its existence. Historiography. Little physical evidence of Srivijaya remains. There had been no continuous knowledge of the history of Srivijaya even in Indonesia and Malaysia. Its forgotten past has been resurrected by foreign scholars. Contemporary Indonesians, even those from the area of Palembang, had not heard of Srivijaya until the 1920s when the French scholar, Georges Coeds, published his discoveries and interpretations in the Dutch and Indonesian language newspapers. Coeds noted that the Chinese references to Sanfoki, previously read as Sribhoha or Sriboa, and the inscriptions in Old Malay refer to the same empire. The Srivijayan historiography was acquired, composed and established from two main sources: the Chinese historical accounts and the Southeast Asian stone inscriptions that have been discovered and deciphered in the region. The Buddhist pilgrim Yijing's account is especially important on describing Srivijaya, when he visited the kingdom in 671 for 6 months. The 7th century Siddha Yatra inscriptions discovered in Palembang and Bangka Island are also vital primary historical sources. Also, regional accounts that some might be preserved and retold as tales and legends, such as the legend of the Maharaja of Javaka and the Khmer king, also provide a glimpse of the kingdom. Some Indian and Arabic accounts also vaguely describe the riches and fabulous fortune of the king of Zabag. The historical records of Srivijaya were reconstructed from a number of stone inscriptions, most of them written in Old Malay using Pallava script, such as the Kedukan Bukit, Taulong Tuo, Talaga Batu and Kota Kapur inscriptions. Srivijaya became a symbol of early Sumatran importance as a great empire to balance Java's Majapahit in the east. In the 20th century, both empires were referred to by nationalistic intellectuals to argue for an Indonesian identity within an Indonesian state that had existed prior to the colonial state of the Dutch East Indies. Srivijaya, and by extension Sumatra, had been known by different names to different peoples. The Chinese called it Sanfatsi, Sanfoki or Che Li Fo Che, and there was an even older kingdom of Kantali, which could be considered the predecessor of Srivijaya. Sanskrit and Pali texts referred to it as Yavades and Habade, respectively. The Arabs called it Zabag or Sribuza and the Khmers called it Melayu. While the Javanese called them Suvarnabhumi, Suvarnadvipa, Malayu, or Malayu. This is another reason why the discovery of Srivijaya was so difficult. While some of these names are strongly reminiscent of the name of Java, there is a distinct possibility that they may have referred to Sumatra instead. Capital. According to the Kedukan Bukit inscription, dated 605 Saka, Srivijaya was first established in the vicinity of today's Palembang, on the banks of Musi River. It mentions that Dapunta Hyang Sri Jayanasa came from Minanga Tamwan. The exact location of Minanga Tamwan is still a subject of discussion. The Palembang theory is the place where Srivijaya was first established was presented by Coeds and supported by Pierre-Yves Manguin. Sikh Mono, on the other hand, argues that Palembang was not the capital of Srivijaya and suggests that the Kampar river system in Riau where the Muara temple is located as Minanga Tamlin. Other than Kedukan Bukit and other Srivijayan inscriptions, immediately to the west of modern Palembang city, a quantity of artifacts have been revealed through archaeological surveys commenced since the 20th century. Artifacts unearthed includes large amount of Chinese ceramics and Indian related ware remains, also the ruins of stupa at the foot of Segungtang Hill. Furthermore, a significant number of Hindu-Buddhist statuary has been recovered from the Musi River basin. These discoveries reinforce the suggestion that Palembang was the center of Srivijaya. Nevertheless, Palembang left little archaeological traces of ancient urban settlement. This is probably because of the nature of Palembang environment, a low-lying plain which frequently flooded by Musi River. Experts suggest that the ancient Palembang settlement was formed as a collection of floating houses made from thatched materials, such as wood, bamboo and straw roof. The 13th century Chinese account confirmed this. In his book Chu Fan Chi, Chao Jukuo mentioned that the resident Sanfotsi lived scattered outside the city on the water, within rafts lined with reeds. It was probably only Kadachuan and religious structures were built on land, while the people live in floating houses along Musi River. Palembang and its relevance to the early Malay state suffered a great deal of controversy in terms of its evidence built up through the archaeological record. Strong historical evidence found in Chinese sources, speaking of city-like settlements as early as 700 AD, and later Arab travelers, who visited the region during the 10th and 11th centuries, held written proof, naming the kingdom of Srivijaya in their context. As far as early state-like polities in the Malay Archipelago, the geographical location of modern Palembang was a possible candidate for the first millennium kingdom settlement like Srivijaya as it is the best described and most secure in historical context. Its prestige was apparent in wealth and urban characteristics, and the most unique, which no other first millennium kingdom held, was its location in junction to three major rivers, the Musi River, the Khmer River, and the Ogan River. The historical evidence was contrasted in 1975 with publications by Bennett Bronson and Jan Weissman. Findings at certain major excavation sites, such as Yijing Suro, Penyringan Air Burj, Sarang Wadi, and Segungtang Hill, conducted in the region played major roles in the negative evidence of the first millennium kingdom in the same region. It was noted that the region contained no locatable settlements earlier than the middle of the second millennium. Lack of evidence of southern settlements in the archaeological record comes from the disinterest in the archaeologist and the unclear physical visibility of the settlement themselves. Archaeology of the 1920s and 1930s focused more on art and epigraphy found in the regions. Some northern urban settlements were cited due to some overlap in fitting the Sinocentric model of city-state urban centers. An approach to differentiate between urban settlements in the southern regions from the northern ones of Southeast Asia was initiated by a proposition for an alternative model. Excavations showed failed signs of a complex urban center under the lens of a Sinocentric model, leading to parameters of a new proposed model. Parameters for such a model of a city-like settlement included isolation and relevance to its hinterland. No hinterland creates for low archaeological visibility. The settlement must also have access to both easy transportation and major interregional trade routes, crucial in a region with few resources. Access to the former and later played a major role in the creation of an extreme economic surplus in the absence of an exploited hinterland. The urban center must be able to organize politically without the need for ceremonial foci such as temples, monuments and inscriptions. Lastly, habitations must be impermanent, being highly probable in the region Palembang and of southern Southeast Asia. Such a model was proposed to challenge city concepts of ancient urban centers in Southeast Asia and basic postulates themselves such as regions found in the south, like Palembang, base their achievements in correlation with urbanization. Due to the contradicting pattern found in southern regions, like Palembang, in 1977 Bennett Bronson developed a speculative model for a better understanding of the Sumatran coastal region, such as insular and peninsular Malaysia, the Philippines, and western Indonesia. Its main focus was the relationship of political, economic and geographical systems. The general political and economic pattern of the region seems irrelevant to other parts of the world of their time, but in correlation with their maritime trade network, it produced high levels of socio-economic complexity. He concluded, from his earlier publications in 1974, that state development in this region developed much differently than the rest of early Southeast Asia. Bronson's model was based on the dendritic patterns of a drainage basin where its opening leads out to sea. Being that historical evidence places the capital in Palembang, and in junction of three rivers, the Musi River, the Khmer River, and the Ogan River, such model can be applied. For the system to function appropriately, several constraints are required. The inability for terrestrial transportation results in movements of all goods through water routes, lining up economical patterns with the dendritic patterns formed by the streams. The second being the overseas center is economically superior to the ports found at the mouth of the rivers, having a higher population and a more productive and technologically advanced economy. Lastly, constraints on the land work against and do not developments of urban settlements. An aerial photograph taken in 1984 near Palembang revealed the remnants of ancient man-made canals, moats, ponds, and artificial islands, suggesting the location of Srivijaya's urban center. Several artifacts such as fragments of inscriptions, Buddhist statues, beads, pottery and Chinese ceramics were found, confirming that the area had, at one time, dense human habitation. By 1993, Pierre-Yves Manguin had shown that the center of Srivijaya was along the Musi River between Bukit Segong Tang and Sabokeng King. However, in 2013, archaeological research led by the University of Indonesia discovered several religious and habitation sites at Muaro Jambi, suggesting that the initial center of Srivijaya was located in Muaro Jambi Regency, Jambi on the Batong Hari River, rather than on the originally proposed Musi River. The archaeological site includes 8 excavated temple sanctuaries and covers about 12 square kilometers, stretches 7.5 kilometers along the Batong Hari River. 80 manapos or mounds of temple ruins are not yet restored. The Muaro Jambi archaeological site was Mahayana Vajrayana Buddhist in nature, which suggests that the site served as the Buddhist learning center, connected to the 10th century famous Buddhist scholar Suvarnadvipi Dharmakirti. Chinese sources also mention that Srivijaya hosts thousands of Buddhist monks. Another theory suggests that Tapuntahyang came from the east coast of the Malay Peninsula, and that the Chaya district in Surat Thani province, Thailand, was the center of Srivijaya. The Srivijayan period is referred to as the time when Srivijaya ruled over present-day southern Thailand. In the region of Chaya, there is clear evidence of Srivijayan influence seen in artwork inspired by Mahayana Buddhism. Because of the large amount of remains, such as the Ligar stele, found in this region, some scholars attempted to prove Chaya as the capital rather than Palembang. This period was also a time for art. The Buddhist art of the Srivijayan kingdom was believed to have borrowed from Indian styles like that of the Dvarabadi school of art. The city of Chaya's name may be derived from the Malay name Cahaya, which means light or radiance. However, some scholars believe that Chaya probably comes from Srivijaya. It was a regional capital in the Srivijaya Empire. Some Thai historians argue it was the capital of Srivijaya itself, but this is generally discounted. In the second half of the 8th century, the capital of Srivijayan Mandala seems to be relocated and re-established in central Java, in the splendid court of Madang Mataram located somewhere in fertile Kedu and Kewu Plain, in the same location of the majestic Borobudur, Manjusrigra and Prambanan monuments. This unique period is known as the Srivijayan episode in central Java, when the monarch of Sailendras rose to become the Maharaja of Srivijaya. By that time, Srivijayan Mandala seems to be consists of the federation or an alliance of city-states, spanned from Java to Sumatra and Malay Peninsula, connected with trade connections cemented with political allegiance. By that time Srivijayan trading centers remain in Palembang, and to further extent also includes ports of Jambi, Kedah and Chaya, while its political, religious and ceremonial center was established in central Java. History. Formation and growth. Siddhayatra. Around the year 500, the roots of the Srivijayan Empire began to develop around present-day Palembang, Sumatra. The Kedukan Bukit inscription, discovered on the banks of the Taulong River near the Karanganyar site, states that the empire of Srivijaya was founded by Tapuntahyang Sri Jayanasa and his retinue. He had embarked on a sacred Siddhayatra journey and led 20,000 troops and 312 people in boats with 1,312 foot soldiers from Inanga Tamwan to Jambi and Palembang. From the Sanskrit inscriptions, It is notable that Dapunta Hyang Srivijayan Asa launched a maritime conquest in 684 with 20,000 men in the Siddhayatra journey to acquire wealth, power, and magical powers. Under the leadership of Dapunta Hyang Srivijayan Asa, the Malayu Kingdom became the first kingdom to be integrated into Srivijaya. This possibly occurred in the 680s. Malayu, also known as Jambi, was rich in gold and held in high esteem at the time. Srivijaya recognized that the submission of Malayu would increase its own prestige. The empire was organized in three main zones: the estuarine capital region centered on Palembang, the Musi River basin which served as a hinterland, and competitor estuarine areas capable of forming competitor power centers. The areas upstream of the Musi River were rich in various commodities valuable to Chinese traders. The capital was administered directly by the ruler, while the hinterland remained under local datus or tribal chiefs, who were organized into a network of alliances with the Srivijaya Maharaja or king. Force was the dominant element in the empire's relations with competitor river systems such as the Batong Hari River, centered in Jambi. The Taulong Tuo Inscription, discovered in Saboking King, Eastern Palembang, is also a Siddhayatra inscription, from the 7th century. This inscription was very likely used in a ceremonial sumpa. The top of the stone is adorned with 7 naga heads, and on the lower portion there is a type of water spout to channel liquid that was likely poured over the stone during a ritual. The ritual included a curse upon those who commit treason against Kedukan Srivijaya. The Taulong Tuo Inscription is also a Siddhayatra inscription. Discovered in Seguntang Hill, Western Palembang, this inscription tells about the establishment of the bountiful Srikshetra garden endowed by King Jayanasa of Srivijaya for the well-being of all creatures. It is likely that the Seguntang Hill site was the location of the Srikshetra garden. Regional conquests. According to the Kodakapur inscription discovered on Bangka Island, the empire conquered most of southern Sumatra and the neighbouring island of Bangka as far as Palas Pasma and Lampung. Also, according to the inscriptions, Dapunta Hyang Srivijayan Asa launched a military campaign against Java in the late 7th century, a period which coincided with the decline of Tarumanagara in West Java and the Kalinga in central Java. The empire thus grew to control trade on the Strait of Malacca, the Sunda Strait, the South China Sea, the Java Sea and the Karamata Strait. Chinese records dating to the late 7th century mention 2 Sumatran kingdoms and 3 other kingdoms on Java as being part of Srivijaya. By the end of the 8th century, many Western Javanese kingdoms, such as Tarumanagara and Kalinga, were within the Srivijayan sphere of influence. Golden Age. The 7th century Sojmer II inscription mentioned that an old Malay-speaking Shivaist family led by Dapunta Selendra had established themselves in the Batong area of the northern coast of central Java. He was possibly the progenitor of the Sailendra family. By the early 8th century, an influential Buddhist family related to Srivijaya dominated central Java. The family was the Sailendras, of Javanese origin. The ruling lineage of Srivijaya intermarried with the Sailendras of central Java. Conquest of Malay Peninsula. During the same century, Langkasuka on the Malay Peninsula became part of Srivijaya. Soon after this, Pan and Tambralinga, north of Langkasuka, came under Srivijayan influence. These kingdoms on the peninsula were major trading nations that transported goods across the peninsula's isthmus. The later inscription in that same Amwang says that Maharaja Dharmasetu of Srivijaya ordered the construction of 3 sanctuaries dedicated to the Bodhisattvas Padmapani, Vajirapani, and Buddha in the northern Malay Peninsula. The inscription further stated that the Dharmasetu was the head of the Sailendras of Java. This is the first known instance of a relationship between Srivijaya and the Sailendra. With the expansion into Java and the Malay Peninsula, Srivijaya controlled 2 major trade choke points in Southeast Asia, the Malacca and Sunda Straits. Some Srivijayan temple ruins are observable in Thailand and Cambodia. At some point in the late 7th century, Cham ports in eastern Indochina started to attract traders. This diverted the flow of trade from Srivijaya. To stop this, Maharaja Dharmasetu launched raids against the coastal cities of Indochina. The city of Indrapura by the Mekong was temporarily controlled from Palembang in the early 8th century. The Srivijayans continued to dominate areas around present-day Cambodia until the Khmer king Jayavarman II, the founder of the Khmer Empire dynasty, severed the Srivijayan link later in the same century. In 851, an Arabic merchant named Sulayman recorded an event about Javanese sailenders staging a surprise attack on the Khmers by approaching the capital from the river, after a sea crossing from Java. The young king of Khmer was later punished by the Maharaja, and subsequently, the kingdom became a vassal of Shailendra dynasty. In 916 CE, a Javanese kingdom invaded Khmer Empire, using 1,000 medium-sized vessels, which results in Javanese victory. The head of Khmer's king then brought to Java. Srivijayan rule in central Java. The Sailendras of Java established and nurtured a dynastic alliance with the Sumatran Srivijayan lineage, and then further established their rule and authority in the Madang Mataram kingdom of central Java. In Java, Dharanindra's successor was Samaragrawira, mentioned in the Nalanda inscription as the father of Balaputradua, and the son of Sailendra Vamsadalaka with stylized name Srivijaya, which refers to Dharanindra. Unlike his predecessor, the expansive and warlike Dharanindra, Samaragrawira seems to have been a pacifist, enjoying the peaceful prosperity of interior Java and Kedu Plain and being more interested in completing the Borobudur project. He appointed Khmer Prince Jayavarman as the governor of Indrapura in the Mekong Delta under Sailendran rule. This decision was later proven to be a mistake, as Jayavarman revolted, moved his capital further inland north from Tonle Sap to Mahendraparvata, severed the link to Srivijaya and proclaimed Cambodia independence from Java in 802. Samaragrawira was mentioned as the king of Java that married Tara, daughter of Dharmasetu. He was mentioned as his other name Rakai Warak in Mantiasi inscription. Earlier historians, such as N.J. Crome and Coeds, tend to equate Samaragrawira and Samarachunga as the same person. However, later historians such as Slamet Mulyana equate Samarachunga with Rakai Garung, mentioned in the Mantiasi inscription as the fifth monarch of the Mataram kingdom. This would mean that Samarachunga was the successor of Samaragrawira. Dui Tara, the daughter of Dharmasetu, married Samaratunga, a member of the Sailendra family who assumed the throne of Srivijaya around 792. By the 8th century, the Srivijayan court was virtually located in Java, as the Sailendra's monarch rose to become the Maharaja of Srivijaya. After Dharmasetu, Samarachunga became the next Maharaja of Srivijaya. He reigned as ruler from 792 to 835. Unlike the expansionist Dharmasetu, Samarachunga did not indulge in military expansion but preferred to strengthen the Srivijayan hold of Java. He personally oversaw the construction of the Grand Monument of Borobudur, a massive stone mandala, which was completed in 825, during his reign. According to Coeds, in the second half of the 9th century Java and Sumatra were united under the rule of a Sailendra reigning in Java. Its center at Palembang. Samarachunga, just like Samaragrawira, seems to have been deeply influenced by peaceful Mahayana Buddhist beliefs and strove to become a peaceful and benevolent ruler. His successor was Princess Pramadawardhani, who was betrothed to Shivate Rakai Paikatan, son of the influential Rakai Patapan, a landlord in central Java. The political move that seems as an effort to secure peace and Sailendran rule on Java by reconciling the Mahayana Buddhists with Shivaist Hindus. Returned to Palembang. Prince Balaputra, however, opposed the rule of Paikatan and Pramadawardhani in central Java. The relations between Balaputra and Pramadawardhani are interpreted differently by some historians. An older theory according to Bosch and to Kasparas holds that Balaputra was the son of Samarachunga, which means he was the younger brother of Pramadawardhani. Later historians such as Mulyana, on the other hand, argued that Balaputra was the son of Samaragrawira and the younger brother of Samarachunga, which means he was the uncle of Pramadawardhani. It is not known whether Balaputra was expelled from central Java because of a succession dispute with Paikatan, or he already ruled in Suvarnadvipa or Suvarnabhumi. Either way, it seems that Balaputra eventually ruled the Sumatran branch of Shailendra dynasty and enthroned in Srivijayan capital of Palembang. Historians argued that this was because Balaputra's mother Tara, the queen consort of King Samaragrawira, was the princess of Srivijaya, making Balaputra the heir of the Srivijayan throne. Balaputra the Maharaja of Srivijaya later stated his claim as the rightful heir of the Shailendra dynasty from Java, as proclaimed in the Nalanda inscription dated 860. After a trade disruption at Canton between 820 and 850, the ruler of Jambi was able to assert enough independence to send missions to China in 853 and 871. The Malayu Kingdom's independence coincided with the troubled times when the Sailendran Balaputradewa was expelled from Java and later he seized the throne of Srivijaya. The new Maharaja was able to dispatch a tributary mission to China by 902. 2 years after that, the expiring Tang dynasty conferred a title on a Srivijayan envoy. In the first half of the 10th century, between the fall of Tang dynasty and the rise of Song, there was brisk trading between the overseas world with the Vijayan kingdom of Min and the rich Guangdong kingdom of Nanhan. Srivijaya undoubtedly benefited from this. Sometime around 903, the Muslim writer Ibn Rushd was so impressed with the wealth of the Srivijayan ruler that he declared that one would not hear of a king who was richer, stronger or had more revenue. The main urban centers of Srivijaya were then at Palembang, Muara Jambi and Kedah. Srivijayan exploration. The core of the Srivijayan realm was concentrated in and around the Malacca and Sunda Straits and in Sumatra, Malay Peninsula, and western Java. However, between the 9th and the 12th centuries, the influence of Srivijaya seems to have extended far beyond the core. Srivijayan navigators, sailors and traders seem to have engaged in extensive trade and exploration, which reached coastal Borneo, the Philippines archipelago, eastern Indonesia, coastal Indochina, the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean as far as Madagascar. The migration to Madagascar accelerated in the 9th century when Srivijaya controlled much of the maritime trade in the Indian Ocean. The migration to Madagascar was estimated to have taken place 1,200 years ago around 830 CE. According to an extensive new mitochondrial DNA study, native Malagasy people today can likely trace their heritage back to 30 founding mothers who sailed from Indonesia 1,200 years ago. Malagasy contains loan words from Sanskrit, with all the local linguistic modifications via Javanese or Malay, hinting that Madagascar may have been colonized by settlers from Srivijaya. The influence of the empire reached Manila by the 10th century. A kingdom of Tondo under its sphere of influence had already been established there. The discovery of a golden statue in Agusan del Sur and a golden kinara from Butuan, northeastern Mindanao, in the Philippines suggests an ancient link between ancient Philippines and the Srivijayan Empire, since Tara and Kinara are important figures or deities in Mahayana Buddhist beliefs. The Mahayana Vajrayana Buddhist religious commonality suggests that ancient Philippines acquired their Mahayana Vajrayana beliefs from Srivijayan influence in Sumatra. Although the gold industries as Butuan far exceeded those in Srivijaya or any related polity in Sumatra. The 10th century Arab account Ajaib al-Hain gives an account of invasion in Africa by people called Wakwak or Wakwak, probably the Malay people of Srivijaya or Javanese people of Madang Kingdom, in 945 to 946 CE. They arrived in the coast of Tanzania and Mozambique with 1,000 boats and attempted to take the citadel of Kwanbalo, though eventually failed. The reason of the attack is because that place had goods suitable for their country and for China, such as ivory, tortoise shells, panther skins, and ambergris, and also because they wanted black slaves from Bantu people who were strong and make good slaves. According to Waharu IV inscription and Garaman inscription, the Madang Kingdom and Erlangas era Kaharapan Kingdom of Java experienced a long prosperity so that it needed a lot of manpower, especially to bring crops, packings, and send them to ports. Black labor was imported from Jengi, Pujat, and Bondan. According to Nairson, they arrived in Java by trading or being taken prisoner during a war and then made slaves. By the 12th century, the kingdom included parts of Sumatra, the Malay Peninsula, western Java, and parts of Borneo. It also had influence over specific parts of the Philippines, most notably the Sulu Archipelago and the Visayas Islands. It is believed by some historians that the name Visayas is derived from the Srivijaya Empire, war against Java. In the 10th century, the rivalry between Sumatran Srivijaya and the Javanese Madang Kingdom became more intense and hostile. The animosity was probably caused by Srivijaya's effort to reclaim the Sailendra lands in Java or by Madang's aspiration to challenge Srivijaya domination in the region. In East Java, the Anjikladong inscription dated from 937 mentions an infiltration attack from Malayu, which refers to a Srivijayan attack upon the Madang Kingdom of East Java. The villagers of Anjikladong were awarded for their service and merit in assisting the king's army, under the leadership of Mbu Sindak, in repelling invading Malayu forces. Subsequently, a Jayastamba was erected in their honor. In 990, King Dharmawangsa of Java launched a naval invasion against Srivijaya and attempted to capture the capital Palembang. The news of the Javanese invasion of Srivijaya was recorded in Chinese Song period sources. In 988, a Srivijayan envoy was sent to the Chinese court in Guangzhou. After sojourning for about 2 years in China, the envoy learned that his country had been attacked by Shipo, which made him unable to return home. In 992, the envoy from Shipo arrived in the Chinese court and explaining that their country was involved in continuous war with Sanfo-chi. In 999, the Srivijayan envoy sailed from China to Champa in an attempt to return home. However, he received no news about the condition of his country. The Srivijayan envoy then sailed back to China and appealed to the Chinese emperor for the protection of Srivijaya against Javanese invaders. Dharmawangsa's invasion led the Maharaja of Srivijaya, Sri Kudamani Warmadwa, to seek protection from China. Warmadwa was known as an able and astute ruler, with shrewd diplomatic skills. In the midst of the crisis brought by the Javanese invasion, he secured Chinese political support by appeasing the Chinese emperor. In 1003, a Song historical record reported that the envoy of Sanfo-chi was dispatched by the king Shi Li Ju Luo Wu Nifo Ma Tiao Hua. The Srivijayan envoy told the Chinese court that in their country a Buddhist temple had been erected to pray for the long life of Chinese emperor, and asked the emperor to give the name and the bell for this temple, which was built in his honor. Rejoiced, the Chinese emperor named the temple Cheng Tan Wan Shu, and a bell was immediately cast and sent to Srivijaya to be installed in the temple. In 1006, Srivijaya's alliance proved its resilience by successfully repelling the Javanese invasion. The Javanese invasion was ultimately unsuccessful. This attack opened the eyes of Srivijayan Maharaja to the dangerousness of the Javanese Madang Kingdom, so he patiently laid a plan to destroy his Javanese nemesis. In retaliation, Srivijaya assisted Haji Vurawari of Waram to revolt, which led to the attack and destruction of the Madang palace. This sudden and unexpected attack took place during the wedding ceremony of Dharmawangsa's daughter, which left the court unprepared and shocked. With the death of Dharmawangsa and the fall of the Madang capital, Srivijaya contributed to the collapse of Madang Kingdom, leaving eastern Java in further unrest, violence and, ultimately, desolation for several years to come. Decline. Chola invasion. The contributory factors in the decline of Srivijaya were foreign piracy and raids that disrupted trade and security in the region. Attracted to the wealth of Srivijaya, Rajendra Chola, the Chola king from Tamil Nadu in South India, launched naval raids on ports of Srivijaya in 1025. His navy sailed swiftly to Sumatra using monsoon winds, made a stealth attack and raided Srivijaya's 14 ports. The strike took Srivijaya by surprise and unprepared. They first ransacked the capital city of Palembang and then swiftly moved on to other ports including Kadaram. The Cholas are known to have benefited from both piracy and foreign trade. At times, the Chola seafaring led to outright plunder and conquest as far as Southeast Asia. An inscription of King Rajendra states that he had captured the king of Kadaram, Sangrama Vijayachungavarman, son of Mara Vijayachungavarman, and plundered many treasures including the Vidyadhara Torana, the jeweled war gate of Srivijaya adorned with great splendor. According to the 15th century Malay annals Sejarah Melayu, Rajendra Chola I after the successful naval raid in 1025 married Onang Q, the daughter of Vijayatunggavarman. This invasion forced Srivijaya to make peace with the Javanese kingdom of Kaharapan. The peace deal was brokered by the exiled daughter of Vijayatunggavarman, who managed to escape the destruction of Palembang, and came to the court of King Airlangga in East Java. She also became the queen consort of Airlangga named Dharma Prasado Tunggadevi and, in 1035, Airlangga constructed a Buddhist monastery named Srivijayasrama dedicated to his queen consort. The Cholas continued a series of raids and conquests of parts of Sumatra and Malay Peninsula for the next 20 years. The expedition of Rajendra Chola I had such a lasting impression on the Malay people of the period that his name is even mentioned in the medieval Malay chronicle the Sejarah Melayu. Even today the Chola rule is remembered in Malaysia as many Malaysian princes have names ending with Cholan or Chulan. One such was the Raja of Perak called Raja Chulan. Rajendra Chola's overseas expeditions against Srivijaya were unique in India's history and its otherwise peaceful relations with the states of Southeast Asia. The reasons for the naval expeditions are uncertain as the sources are silent about its exact causes. Nilakanta Sastry suggests that the attacks were probably caused by Srivijaya's attempts to throw obstacles in the way of the Chola trade with the East or, more probably, a simple desire on the part of Rajendra Chola to extend his military victories to the well-known countries to gain prestige. The new research, however, suggests that the attack was a preemptive strike with a commercial motive. Rajendra Chola's naval strike was a geostrategic maneuver. The raids gravely weakened the Srivijayan hegemony and enabled the formation of regional kingdoms like Kadiri, which were based on intensive agriculture rather than coastal and long-distance trade. With the passing of time, the regional trading center shifted from the old Srivijayan capital of Palembang to another trade center on the island of Sumatra, Jambi, which was the center of Malayu. Under the Cholas, the Chola control over Srivijaya under Rajendra Chola I lasted 2 decades until 1045 AD. According to one theory proposed by Sri Lankan historian Paranavatana, Rajendra Chola I was murdered in 1044 AD, during his visit to Srivijaya by Purandara, on the order of Samara V. Hayachungavarman, Sangrama V. Hayachungavarman's brother. According to this theory, Samara launched a massive annihilation against Chola and claimed the Srivijaya throne in 1045. Samara sent his cousin and son-in-law, Mahendra, with his army to help Vijayabhahu I to defeat the Cholas and regain the throne. Samara's name was mentioned by Mahinda VI of Polonnaruwa in the Mandijriya inscription and Bolanda inscription. On the contrary, according to South Indian epigraphs and records, Rajendra Chola I died in Brahmadesam, now a part of the North Arcot district in Tamil Nadu, India. This information is recorded in an inscription of his son, Rajata Raja Chola I, which states that Rajendra Chola's queen Varamadevyar committed sati upon Rajendra's death and her remains were interred in the same tomb as Rajendra Chola I in Brahmadesam. It adds that the queen's brother, who was a general in Rajendra's army, set up a watershed at the same place in memory of his sister. There is also evidence to suggest that Kulatunga Chola, the maternal grandson of Emperor Rajendra Chola I, in his youth was in Srivijaya, restoring order and maintaining Chola influence in that area. Barariyendra Chola states in his inscription, dated in the 7th year of his reign, that he conquered Kadaram and gave it back to its king who came and worshipped his feet. These expeditions were led by Kulatunga to help the Sailendra king who had sought the help of Barariyendra Chola. An inscription of Canton mentions T. Huwa Kialo as the ruler of Srivijaya. According to historians, this ruler is the same as the Chola ruler T. Huwa Kialo mentioned in the Song Annals and who sent an embassy to China. According to Tan Yok Song, the editor of the Srivijayan inscription of Canton, Kulatunga stayed in Kadaram after the naval expedition of 1067 AD and reinstalled its king before returning to South India and ascending the throne. Internal and external rivalries. Between 1079 and 1088, Chinese records show that Srivijaya sent ambassadors from Jambi and Palembang. In 1079 in particular, an ambassador from Jambi and Palembang each visited China. Jambi sent 2 more ambassadors to China in 1082 and 1088. That would suggest that the center of Srivijaya frequently shifted between the 2 major cities during that period. The Chola expeditions as well as the changing trade routes weakened Palembang, allowing Jambi to take the leadership of Srivijaya from the 11th century onwards. By the 12th century, a new dynasty called Malay rose as the paramount of Srivijaya. The earliest reference to the new dynasty was found in the Grey inscription from 1183 discovered in Chaya, southern Thailand Malay Peninsula. The inscription bears the order of Maharaja Srimatralakaya Raja Malabhusana Warmadwa to the Bhupati of Grey named Mahasenapati Galanai to make a statue of Buddha weighing 1 bura 2 tula with a value of 10 gold tamlin. The artist responsible for the creation of the statue is Mradan Sri Nano. According to the Chinese Song dynasty book Ju Fanji, written around 1225 by Zhao Rigua, the 2 most powerful and richest kingdoms in the Southeast Asian archipelago were Srivijaya and Java, with the western part under Srivijaya's rule and the eastern part was under Kadiri's domination. It says that the people in Java followed 2 kinds of religions, Buddhism and the religion of Brahmins, while the people of Srivijaya followed Buddhism. The book describes the people of Java as being brave, short-tempered and willing to fight. It also notes that their favorite pastimes were cockfighting and pig fighting. The coins used as currency were made from a mixture of copper, silver and tin. Ju Fanji also states that Java was ruled by a Maharaja and included the following dependencies: Pai Hua Yuan, Ma Tung, Ta Pen, Hai Ning, Yung Yalu, Tung Ki, Tikong, Huang Ma Chu, Mali, Kulun, Tan Yung Wu Lo, Ti Wu, Pingya I and Wu Nu Ku. Additionally, Zhao Rigua said that Srivijaya was still a great power at the beginning of the 13th century with 15 colonies: Pong Fong, Tong Yanong, Lingya Sikia, Kelantan, Fo Loan, Ji Lo Ting, Sian Mai, Pa Ta, Tan Ma Ling, Kia Lo Hai northern part of Malay Peninsula, Pa Lin Fong, Sin To, Lan Wu Li, Kien Pai and Ceylon. Srivijaya remained a formidable sea power until the 13th century. According to Conquests, at the end of the 13th century, the empire had ceased to exist, caused by the simultaneous pressure on its two flanks of Siam and Java. Javanese pressure. By the 13th century, the Singasari Empire, the successor state of Kediri in Java, rose as a regional hegemon in maritime Southeast Asia. In 1275, the ambitious and able King Kertanagara, the fifth monarch of Singasari who had been reigning since 1254, launched a naval campaign northward towards the remains of the Srivijayan Mandala. The strongest of these Malay kingdoms was Jambi, which captured the Srivijaya capital in 1088, then the Dharmasraya Kingdom, and the Temasek Kingdom of Singapore, and then remaining territories. In 1288, Kertanagara's forces conquered most of the Malayu states, including Palembang, Jambi and much of Srivijaya, during the Pamalayu expedition. The Padang Roko inscription was discovered in 1911 near the source of the Batong Hari River. The 1286 inscription states that under the order of King Kertanagara of Singasari, a statue of Amoapasa Lokshvara was transported from Pumajawa to Suvarnabhumi to be erected at Dharmasraya. This gift made the people of Suvarnabhumi rejoice, especially their king Tribhuwanaraja. In 1293, the Majapahit Empire, the successor state of Singasari, ruled much of Sumatra. Prince Adityawarman was given power over Sumatra in 1347 by Tribhuwana Wijayachungadui, the third monarch of Majapahit. A rebellion broke out in 1377 and was quashed by Majapahit, but it left the area of southern Sumatra in chaos and desolation. In the following years, sedimentation on the Musi River estuary cut the kingdom's capital off from direct sea access. This strategic disadvantage crippled trade in the kingdom's capital. As the decline continued, Islam made its way to the Aceh region of Sumatra, spreading through contacts with Arab and Indian traders. By the late 13th century, the kingdom of Pasai, in northern Sumatra, converted to Islam. At the same time, Srivijayan lands in the Malay Peninsula were briefly a tributary state of the Khmer Empire and later the Sukhothai Kingdom. The last inscription on which a crown prince, Anangavarman, son of Adityawarman, is mentioned, dates from 1374. Last revival efforts. After decades of Javanese domination, there were several last efforts made by Sumatran rulers to revive the old prestige and fortune of Malay Srivijayan Mandala. Several attempts to revive Srivijaya were made by the fleeing princes of Srivijaya. According to the Malay annals, a new ruler named Sang Sapurba was promoted as the new paramount of Srivijayan Mandala. It was said that after his accession to Segmentang Hill with his two younger brothers, Sang Sapurba entered into a sacred covenant with Demang Lebar Dan, the native ruler of Palembang. The newly installed sovereign afterwards descended from the hill of Segmentang into the great plain of the Musi River, where he married Wan Sendri, the daughter of the local chief, Demang Lebar Dan. Sang Sapurba was said to have reigned in Minangkabau lands. According to Visayan legends, in the 1200s, there was a resistance movement of Srivijayan Datas aimed against the encroaching powers of the Hindu Kola and Majapahit empires. The Datas migrated to and organized their resistance movement from the Visayas Islands of the Philippines, which was named after their Srivijayan homeland. 10 Datas, led by Datu Pudi, established a rump state of Srivijaya, called Maja in the Visayas Islands. This rump state waged war against the Kola Empire and Majapahit and also raided China, before they were eventually assimilated into a Spanish empire that expanded to the Philippines from Mexico. In 1324, a Srivijaya prince, Sri Maharaja Sang Uttama Paramaswara Batara Sri Tribhuwana, founded the kingdom of Singapura. According to tradition, he was related to Sang Sapurba. He maintained control over Temasek for 48 years. He was recognized as ruler over Temasek by an envoy of the Chinese emperor sometime around 1366. He was succeeded by his son Paduka Sri P. Kerma Waira Diraja and grandson, Paduka Seri Rana Waira Kerma. In 1401, the last ruler, Paduka Sri Maharaja Paramaswara, was expelled from Temasek by forces from Majapahit or Ayutthaya. He later headed north and founded the Sultanate of Malacca in 1402. The Sultanate of Malacca succeeded the Srivijaya Empire as a Malay political entity in the archipelago.